The wounded one in the dust. In the village of Nkusa, even the rain had learned to be stingy. The earth had cracked like old clay pots, and the wind carried more dust than breath. Crops failed. Cattle died with their ribs showing like sharp teeth. And kindness, well, that had dried up long before the river ever did. Naya lived at the very edge of this struggling village, in a small hut shaded by an ancient, leafless baobab. A quiet woman with calloused fingers and eyes that had memorized every healing herb from the valley floor to the mountain pass, Naya was known by many names. Some called her a leaf brewer. Others simply whispered the loner. Naya preferred plants over people, not because she hated company, but because company often came with expectations and drama. Plants, at least, didn't gossip. The discovery. One late afternoon, with the sun melting into a dull red haze, Naya was scouring the dead hills for wando bark, a rare herb said to stop fevers. Most believed it had all vanished with the last rain. Naya believed the stubbornest things often lived longer. She moved carefully between brittle shrubs when a strange sound caught her ear, a sharp gasp, like steam escaping a cracked pot. She froze. There, just ahead, half buried in ash and leaves, lay a serpent. But this was no ordinary snake. It was massive, longer than any she'd seen, easily the length of a canoe. Its scales shimmered under the dust, catching the light with a green-gold glint. Its body was coiled in a pained twist, ribs showing, blood seeping from a deep gash near its side. Its eyes, oh, the eyes. They were like emeralds drowned in fire. Naya's breath caught in her throat. A serpent of that size. With eyes like that. Folk tales came rushing to her mind, of snake spirits, curse guardians, protectors of the forest, and beasts that fed on the souls of those who dared show them mercy. Her instinct screamed, run. But something in her, a stubborn tenderness, held her still. She approached slowly. The serpent's body tensed. Its tongue flicked weakly, tasting the air. Then it slumped, too exhausted to fight. Naya knelt, ignoring the whisper in her gut that warned of danger. She touched the creature's side. Its scales were warm, almost fevered. Don't bite me, she muttered. I'm the only fool in this village that talks to snakes. She wrapped the serpent in a worn shawl, cradled it like a dying child, and carried it home. Whispers in the wind. Back in her hut, Naya worked fast. She cleaned the wounds with crushed neem leaves, brewed a bitter tea laced with antivenom herbs, and laid the serpent on a soft mat beside the fire. It didn't move. Only its eyes followed her every motion, too intelligent, too human. By dawn, it still hadn't struck. Not once. Naya named it Isoba, the quiet one. Days turned into weeks. Isoba slowly healed. It ate nothing Naya offered, but each morning, Naya would find the snake stronger. Sometimes it would vanish at night and return before sunrise. Once, it left a pile of perfectly skinned rats on her doorstep. Naya wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or mildly terrified. The villagers noticed changes too. Around Naya's hut, plants began to grow. Wildflowers sprouted where none had before. Her garden, once patchy and pale, now overflowed with herbs and greens. A banana tree that hadn't borne fruit in 2 years dropped a cluster so heavy it bent its own trunk. She walks with a spirit, one woman muttered. A snake demon, another hissed. Naya heard them all, but said nothing. She simply kept healing. The night visitor. One moonless night, as the fire crackled low and Naya drifted to sleep with a worn herb journal on her chest, a sound jolted her awake. Footsteps. Soft, sneaky, and close. Naya's heart raced. She sat up and saw the flicker of a shadow by the window. Then, crash. The door burst open. A thief lunged in, dagger in hand, eyes wide with desperation. Give me your herbs, he barked. And that snake. I heard what it can do. Naya backed away, hands raised. Take what you want, she said, trying to calm him. Just leave. But before the thief could move, a sound split the air. A hiss. Long, deep. Ancient. From behind the clay pots, Isoba rose, his body uncoiling like smoke. His eyes glowed brighter than firelight. The thief froze, knife shaking. Stay back, he yelled. It's just a snake. He never finished. With a blur of movement and a flash of foam, Isoba struck. The man screamed once. By the time Naya reached him, he was collapsed, foam at the corners of his mouth, body twitching, then still. Isoba slithered back into the shadows, as if nothing had happened. Naya stood over the lifeless form, heart pounding, a bitter taste in her mouth. He would have killed me, she whispered. Right. But the serpent did not answer. Only the fire popped, and in that silence, Naya realized something had shifted. Her kindness had saved a life. But it might have also unleashed something no one could ever control. Whispers and warnings. For weeks after the thief's death, the village of Nkusa simmered with whispers. Not the gossip kind, but the fearful, hushed kind that made even the wind feel nervous. They spoke not of Naya, but of the thing that lives with her. The snake that killed the thief. The green-eyed demon. The spirit guardian. Each version of the story added a new coat of myth. Some claimed the serpent could turn invisible, others said it sang to the moon. One man swore it spoke in riddles. He was also the village drunk, so, grain of salt. Naya said nothing. She barely left her hut. But she noticed something strange. People who once walked past her with indifference now crossed the road. Children stopped playing near her home. Even traders began dropping off her supplies silently, then scurrying away like mice. Naya didn't care for attention. But this was isolation dressed in fear. The elders arrive. One cloudless morning, 3 elders from the Council of Firestones came to her door. Old men in crimson robes, with walking sticks carved from lightning-blasted trees, basically the village's version of spiritual FBI. Naya stepped out with a calm expression and slightly sweaty palms. Isoba was nowhere to be seen, but she knew he was watching. We have come with peace, daughter, said Elder Makambai, the tallest of the 3, whose eyebrows had their own zip code. There are concerns about the creature that guards you. I have no creature, Naya replied. I have a guest. He was wounded. I helped. Others say it kills for you, another elder chimed in, eyes sharp. That it obeys your thoughts. Naya shook her head. He obeys no one. The elders circled her home, murmuring chants, checking for signs of dark magic, broken feathers, cursed bones, or pots full of whispering spirits, classic Tuesday stuff. They found nothing. But just as they were about to leave, a low hiss slithered through the air. Makambai froze. A shadow darted across the edge of the clearing. The 3 elders turned in unison, staffs raised. But the shadow vanished, just dust and wind. Naya said nothing. But a small smile tugged at the edge of her lips. Naming the serpent. That night, as the stars blinked into the sky like shy gods, Naya sat by the fire, the serpent curled beside her, half asleep. I should call you something, shouldn't I? She murmured, stroking the rough edge of its scale. The serpent's tongue flicked, once. How about Isoba? The name felt right. It meant silent watcher, in the old tongue, used in songs about guardians who see but do not interfere unless provoked. Isoba blinked once, slowly. Naya took that as agreement. Or indigestion. It was hard to tell with snakes. The old woman's warning. The next day, as Naya gathered herbs near the river, she saw her, an old woman hunched over a cane, her eyes milk-white, but her steps unnaturally steady. Your snake watches you, the woman rasped without introduction. Naya blinked. Excuse me. He watches you now. From the trees. And he will watch you still, when your last breath leaves you. Okay, well, that's cheery, Naya said, backing away politely. The woman didn't follow. She simply planted her cane in the dirt and said, He who controls a spirit animal walks with death as a friend. It listens, yes, but not out of love. It remembers things we have forgotten. And one day, it will remind you. Then she turned and vanished into the woods like a bad dream. The dreams begin. That night, Naya dreamt of fire. A battlefield. Smoke. Screaming. She was not herself, but another woman, draped in royal cloth, holding a staff carved with serpents. Behind her, a great emerald snake coiled, guarding her throne. Then betrayal. A dagger in the back. Poison in her cup. As she collapsed, the serpent lunged toward her enemies, and then turned on her, its eyes filled with something worse than rage, regret. Naya woke drenched in sweat. She had never seen that queen before. But somehow, she felt like she was her. Each night, more visions came, of ancient kingdoms and fallen warriors, of serpents weeping tears of blood, of oaths made and broken. Isoba would be caught beside her every morning, silent. Watching the rise of Toran. In a fortress carved from black stone, miles beyond Kusa, a former warrior named Toran sat listening to the tale of the spirit serpent in the village. A muscular man with one eye and a voice that could bend iron, Toran had once been the village's hero until he led a failed rebellion and was banished. Now he led his own cult of fighters and fire-breathers, claiming to speak with gods and demons alike. When his scout returned from Kusa and whispered of the emerald-eyed snake, Toran grinned. A serpent that guards. Or a weapon waiting to be wielded. He stood, armor clinking like the laughter of war, and said, Prepare my riders. We ride at moonrise. If the girl won't hand over her guardian, we'll take it from her corpse. A visitor with honeyed words. Toran arrived dressed not in armor, but in fine linen. His scarred face was freshly oiled, his missing eye hidden by a polished onyx patch. The village hadn't seen him in 5 years, not since his exile for trying to seize control of the council. He arrived at Naya's hut with 2 goats, a bag of kola nuts, and a charm meant to ward off evil spirits. The irony practically slapped her. Naya opened her door and stared him down. I thought snakes were your thing, he said with a grin. But I come in peace. Naya crossed her arms. Then you should have stayed away. Toran chuckled and stepped inside anyway. Over a pot of herb tea, which she very deliberately did not sip, he laid out his offer. I don't want your snake. I want a partnership. You and Isoba join me, and we bring order to this land. No more cults. No more warlords. Just control. Peace through power. Naya watched him carefully. His words were smooth, but his hands clenched like someone holding back lightning. She shook her head. You don't want peace. You want obedience. What I want, Toran said, voice sharpening, is to not fear the thing you sleep beside. That snake could rule kingdoms. And it sleeps on a mat beside a girl with dirty fingernails. Naya stood. Then you should be afraid. Toran left without another word. But his smile stayed behind, oily and heavy in the air. The ambush. 2 nights later, under a moon as thin as a thief's blade, Naya woke to the sharp sound of a whistle. She sat up, and instantly knew something was wrong. The air felt tainted. 3 shadows darted through her herb garden. She caught the glint of knives, and one of them carried a glowing rope made from blessed twine, the kind used to bind spirits. They are here for Isoba, she whispered. But she didn't need to speak. The serpent was already rising. From under the bed, Isoba slithered forward, not with the slow grace he usually showed, but with fury. Silent. Focused. Lethal. The intruders barely had time to raise their weapons before. Hiss. Strike. Silence. But this time, it wasn't venom that killed. It was something worse. The men froze, literally froze. Their skin turned gray, stiff. Cracks formed across their cheeks. One tried to scream, but his lips hardened into stone. Seconds later, 3 perfect statues stood in Naya's home. Isoba turned to her, his eyes flickering. Not with rage. Not even with satisfaction. With calm. Like he had done exactly what he was meant to do. Naya stepped back, her voice trembling. What was that? Isoba blinked once. Then slid back into the shadows. A village divided. Word spread faster than wildfire during Harmattan. Some villagers came to her hut with gifts, yams, soap, even a calf stool, as thanks for keeping the chaos-bringers at bay. She is a protector, they said. A warrior of the old ways. Others came with chants and cowrie shells, warning that she was cursed. That she consorted with spirits that turned men to stone and whispered in dreams. Even the children began to play games where they yelled, "Run! Or the snake will make you a statue." Naya said nothing. But she felt the village shifting under her feet, half grateful, half terrified. And none of them more terrified than her. The public curse. Toran returned, but this time not with gifts. He came with fire. He stormed the village square with 12 warriors, faces painted with ash and fury. They carried spears tipped with serpent fangs, tokens of old court magic. In front of the villagers, Toran raised his hand and pointed toward Naya's hut. That woman is no healer. She is a curse wrapped in skin. That serpent is not her friend, it is her weapon. The villagers stood silent. Toran raised a calabash filled with dark liquid and smashed it on the ground. I curse her. Let the ancestors hear me. May the serpent she shelters turn on her. May her name be erased from the land. May fear be her only companion. Lightning cracked in the sky on a cloudless day. Which is always a bad sign, let's be real. Naya didn't respond. She watched from her doorway as Toran spat and stormed off. But inside, her hands shook. The line crossed. Later that week, while fetching water from the well just outside the village, Naya saw something that shattered her trust in Isoba. A young man, barely older than a boy, approached her with hands raised. "I'm sorry," he said, trembling. "They made me come. Toran made me spy on you. I'm done. Please, don't let the snake hurt me." Naya nodded. "Go. I believe you." But behind her, there was movement. A flicker of green and gold. "Isoba, stop," she whispered. But Isoba didn't stop. The boy turned to run. And in a blink, he fell. Convulsing. Foam at the mouth. Naya rushed to him, but it was too late. Isoba slithered back into the forest, without even a glance. Naya knelt in the dust, tears sliding down her cheeks. He surrendered, she whispered. "Why would you?" There was no answer. Just the sound of birds fleeing the trees. And somewhere, faintly, a distant drum began to beat. A warning, perhaps. Or a countdown. Doubt slithers in. Naya sat at her heart, staring into the fire as if it could answer the question that haunted her. Was she ever in control of Isoba? Or had she been chosen? A temporary vessel. A useful pawn. A tool for something ancient and unspeakable. Lately, Isoba had begun appearing in places she never sent him, lurking near council gatherings, telling villagers who had simply spoken against her, even striking one man who had merely dreamed of revenge. His wife had screamed that he never even said it out loud. Naya felt her influence thinning, like a rope unraveling. Each time she tried to speak to the serpent, to command him, he would flick his tongue, blink slowly, and slither away, as if humoring her had become optional. The forbidden banishment. In desperation, Naya sought out the only one who might help, the blind seer of the northern hills, the same eerie woman who had once warned her, he who controls the spirit animal walks with death as a friend. The woman now laughed bitterly when Naya arrived. You don't walk with death anymore, child. You sleep beside it. She handed Naya a small pouch of crushed bone and coal-black salt. Sprinkle this under the full moon. Speak its true name. If it leaves, you're free. If it stays, she shrugged, well, then it shows you. That night, Naya followed the instructions. She stood under the moon's silver glare, drew the ritual symbols in ash and blood, and whispered the secret name Isoba had once shown her in a dream. Ishtola. The trees held their breath. The wind went still. A long, aching silence followed. Then, a shriek. A roar. A thunderclap of pain. From the shadows, Isoba burst forth, scales glowing with fury, his body wounded and steaming as if the ritual had burned through his very soul. He hissed, not in pain, but betrayal. Then he vanished. And Naya dropped to her knees, her mouth filled with the taste of blood and ash. Captured. 2 days later, as she wandered alone in the forest, trying to find clarity, or at least forgiveness, Torrance Cortes found her first. They didn't ask questions. They simply beat her, bound her, and dragged her to the old stone circle outside the village, where executions were carried out for crimes that couldn't be named. Which, they called her. Serpent lover. Bringer of curses. Torrance stood above the circle like a vulture in royal robes, holding a curved blade said to have tasted the blood of kings. His voice echoed through the clearing. This is the end of our reign. No more fear. No more magic. Today we return to order. Naya barely heard him. Her head throbbed. Her arms bled. She looked to the sky, not for hope, but for peace. The storm arrives. The wind shifted. Birds screamed from the trees. And then, he came. Isoba. Not slithering, not crawling. Charging. A blur of emerald and gold, a force of vengeance wrapped in scales and thunder. He ripped through the crowd, tearing warriors apart with fangs that sang like swords. His tail shattered stone. His venom melted shields. Toran raised his blade, only to be swallowed whole. It was over in minutes. And then, silence. Naya, still bound, stared up at her savior. They look. Isoba slithered toward her slowly, his massive head lowering until his eyes met hers. Not with affection. Not even anger. But hunger. Not the kind that growls in the stomach. The kind that stares at the last candle in a dark room and decides it wants darkness. Naya didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply whispered. Please, don't. Isoba tilted his head. Paused. And stayed still. For now. But Naya knew. He had no more enemies left. Only her, the last bite. Naya ran. Through dry brush, over jagged stone, through branches that clawed at her face like hands trying to keep her back. She didn't stop to rest. Didn't stop to breathe. Not until the trees thinned and the air grew thinner and sharper. The sacred mountains stood ahead like old gods, silent, cold, unmoving. And deep within them lay the oracle of hollow echo, a cave whispered about in songs that only madmen remembered. And Naya. She was desperate enough to try madness. The oracle's truth. The cave was empty at first, just shadows and the sound of her own heart knocking on her ribs. But then, a voice emerged. Ancient, genderless, everywhere. You seek the truth about the one who watches. Naya fell to her knees. Please. I need to know what Isoba is. What I am to him. He is not what you think, the voice said. He never was. Visions flooded her mind, a queen in gold, draped in beauty and venom. Her guardian, a serpent, noble and loyal, chosen by the gods to protect balance. But power twists everything. The queen used him, then feared him. So she betrayed him. Bound him with blood magic. Cast him into eternal rebirth, doomed to serve, protect, and eventually destroy. He does not protect you, the oracle said. He balances you. The stronger you grow, the closer his fangs come. Naya wept. Can he be freed? Only if he chooses to be. And with that, the vision faded. Too late. By the time Naya returned to Nkusa, smoke curled into the sky. Not from cooking fires. From destruction. Isoba had returned. Not with vengeance. But with purpose. He hadn't attacked randomly, no. He struck only those who rose too quickly, who grew too proud, too feared. Cult leaders. Soldiers. Even the council itself. Naya ran through the village square, now a graveyard of stone statues and scorched earth. Children screamed. Mothers wept. And at the center stood Isoba, glowing like a storm. He saw her. And for the first time, he smiled. The final confrontation. Naya didn't raise her hands. Didn't summon magic. She stepped forward, heartbroken and bare. You were betrayed once, she said. I saw it. You served a queen who feared you, because you were more loyal than she deserved. Isoba paused, tongue flicking. You've been cursed to balance the scales ever since. But I am not her. I never commanded you. I loved you. The serpent hissed softly, a sound that sounded almost sorrowful. Naya stepped closer. Let me show you who you were. Before you were a monster. She drew a circle in the dirt. Blood from her own palm. Her voice trembled, but her chant was strong. Ancestral spirits stirred. Wind howled. And through the dust, a form began to emerge, Isoba's original self. Not a snake. But a man. A warrior of serpent skin and gold eyes, betrayed by a crown, consumed by vengeance, twisted by time. Isoba saw the vision. And something inside him shattered. He turned from Naya, let out a low moan that shook the earth. And with one final hiss, he struck himself. His fangs pierced his own flesh. His body convulsed. And in a flash of green fire, he was gone. Aftermath. Naya collapsed. Not dead, but far from whole. She woke 3 days later, wounds wrapped in leaves, her heart rebuilt by the villagers, those who remained. Nkusa was quiet. Peaceful. But never the same. Some called her the snake's widow. Others whispered of her power with fear, though she had none left to wield. But all remembered what she had done. What she had survived. What she had freed. And at night, when the wind blew just right, some swore they heard a hiss on the breeze. Not threatening. Just watching. As if somewhere, beyond the veil, Isoba still lingered. Not as a guardian. Not as a weapon. But as a memory. A warning. A legend. The end.